Good evening. We're now live. And in our discussion today on this evening, happy Father's Day, Dan and JR.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Happy Father's Day to all fathers watching.
Yeah,
Hey, okay, it's live.
right.
I saw the photo.
So, before we answer all these other questions, we JR muna, ilang years ka na father, di ba? What's it like being a father?
Well, I've been a father for almost 12 years now, but will be 13 in September. It's been great. It's been an up and down ride, but it's very exciting, and I really like talking to my son and my daughter. No, it started with a son, not about 12 years ago. Then I have that's Bobby. No, then I have a daughter, si Rory. She's 9 years old. And
Right.
it's really, it's right now, it's really beautiful. I'm telling you, they're really coming to their own, talking about their dreams, about their aspirations, also in their own language or in their own expressions.
Already, di ba? At this age, they have certain aspirations already.
Yeah, and they also have certain already what you call preferences,
Right.
preferences of food, preferences to things that they watch, di ba?
Yes.
So it's very interesting to see it evolve.
It looks like you're an open dad. You're a cool dad. What has helped you be open? Because there are other dads, they want to dictate. They want to tell their kids. How did you learn these things?
Well, I learned a lot from you. That's for sure. Well, no, I think it's really a matter of really finding out early in the game about that fathers or parents in general are really there to support their child achieve their dreams and really look at their dreams. Because sometimes we have some things that we want to happen in our life that we never got to, and it is transferred to our children. So sometimes that's what overtakes the desire, or there are certain talents that you see in them that you wish that they could develop more, but sometimes you have to wait until they're interested in it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So
Even that kind of stance, was that part of the learnings in all these parenting seminars you attended? I mean, how important or the seminars for you and Marian, your wife, to be able to really interact with your children?
it was very important. No? There are a lot of things that we had to unlearn, and there are a lot of things also that we developed over time. I mean, what's nice is that there's nothing wrong really with how we were brought up. We were just brought up that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main thing that we have to remember. And except that
Maybe
as you
Yeah.
sorry, Belle, you were saying?
No, sige, you continue. Now, I was going to say, maybe it will help for other dads to know what is it that you had to unlearn and how come you had to unlearn it. Diba?
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe first thing that the things that I had to unlearn was really understand how it is to become a parent. Of course, as parents, we have natural tendencies to have dreams for our children, things
Right.
that we want them to achieve, probably a good career, probably earning well, di ba? May mga ganun. So it's really about that space, di ba? But then you come to realize as we grow old, as I grew up in the parenting seminars and everything, I realized that we have to, our kids have to want those dreams. We
Right.
can't dream for them. Diba? And then once that's clear with them, then we can help now equip them to chase those dreams.
Right.
Diba? So I think that's the biggest thing that we have to unlearn. Kasi syempre, we live in a world that there are a lot of things that are nice. And syempre, as a parent, you just want the nice things for your child.
Right.
And in the process, you also have that danger of giving too many nice things. So, diba? So you're not really giving a real picture of how it is to chase a dream.
Right. Did I get that right? You were saying there's that danger of giving too many nice things to them?
Yeah, there's a danger that sometimes you have to, just because like you're just because that you're in a certain lifestyle now that you have a little bit more than what you used to, or you're successful in your own right, and you can afford certain things to give it to them, you can give it to them. No, there has to be certain parameters and rules which are, I think, aligned to the values that you want your children to have when they grow up or as they grow older. So, for example, instant gratification, deprivation, it's all part of that whole system, diba? Even if you can give it, you have to ask yourself, okay, if I'm giving this now, how will it affect his future? How he wants things, or how she would want things, or how he or she wants to strive for things. For example, good grades. Okay, you know, good grades are always good, but as a child, you have to realize that good grades is a result of good work, diba? So if you get high grades, like kami, even if our kids get high grades, we don't really treat them out to it. It's not really special. We commend them for having good grades, and we tell them that we're proud of what they've done, what they've accomplished,
So you
and
affirm.
we ask them, oh, yeah, we affirm them, and then we ask them, okay, are you happy with what you had, or what your grade? Do you want to strive for something more, something higher? And then when they say yes, of course, we'll say, okay, so what do you think you can improve? What can you improve from yourself? No,
Right.
if they say, no, I'm okay with that. Why are you okay? Why are you just okay with that? So you have to just ask questions and really stimulate that wanting them to have that conversation with you. In the process, you get to understand your children. What makes them tick? What makes them? Because they're very different from who you are.
Yeah, that's correct. That's good. Yep. Rafi's here. One day, hopefully, he'll be a dad. But he can ask you questions.
Not yet, not yet.
No, ask
Not
dad.
yet.
You know what?
Hi, Raf.
No, dad. You ask first the questions. You ask them the questions, then we'll we can learn from. So JR was sharing about
The
yeah,
first question. No?
right. Not yet, but you can ask Dan maybe this one
Okay.
first. Yeah. Yeah,
The first question is
yeah, for Dan.
so for Tito Dan, how do I create a balance between being an open-minded, free-spirited dad and a dad whose instinct is just to protect my kids from the threats of the world? Sounds like
Wow. Okay, that was a very difficult question.
Budla kay Dan napunta yun.
I was already preparing my answer for the same question you gave to JR. But anyway,
Okay, gusto mo sagutin mo na yun? Sagutin mo muna.
no, it's okay. It's okay.
hirap.
One of the hardest thing to do is actually to do that balance. And fathers that have that automatic role, perceived role at least, that it's their job to protect their children. And it is, especially when they are very young. But they have to really transition from that role to from a protector to a guide to a mentor, and eventually to just be a model of what it is to be a father and to be a man. I believe that the balance lies in a process of first really acknowledging that there is a need to protect your children, and maybe to not really expose them to the quote unquote realities at a very young age. But it's also being ready when the child faces the challenges and those realities to be able to respond to it in a manner that basically says, yes, life is difficult, but I'm here for you. And that, I think, is a huge role and the huge transition that fathers need to take in their development as individuals and as fathers. So it's really knowing that at this particular time, it's really not protecting them anymore, but letting them test themselves in this world, but knowing that I'm behind them, I'm supporting them, and I'll be with them all the way.
Were you like that from the beginning, Dan?
Well,
Or
I was more really protective. I had a lot of issues as a young parent, and it was really like, for example, if I remember there was one time when my daughter, I believe someone took her thermos or whatever the water container or juice container in the school bus, and I really raged and tried to look for whoever took it, and I realized it was, well, as I said, I'm coming from a lot of issues, and one of them is anger. But knowing how to really make that balance, it's knowing that eventually They're going to have to live in this world on their own terms. And part of my job as a father is to allow them to really test themselves and rely on their resilience and trust in their own capacities that they can handle things. And it's uh, really almost like a tightrope that you're crossing, but it really is a key, I think, to an effective role as a father.
Yeah.
Mm.
So is that something automatic of a dad or something you had to learn also along the way? No?
The automatic thing is the protective side. What you have to learn is to really let go, to really allow and trust our your own children and my own children to eventually travel the world or journey the world on their own terms with their own skill set and with my support, not so much my protection.
At what point in the journey of being a dad did you start to practice letting go?
About 2 weeks ago. No,
And
no.
how old are your children? Can you please?
Okay, okay. Just I have to be careful. Okay, I was married in 1986,
Yes,
so
your children might
I'm
be
I've been married for this year. I'll be married 34 years, and my
34.
children are well. My eldest just turned 33. My second is turning 31 this year, and my youngest also turned 29. So I've been married for 34 years, and I've been a parent for about 96 years or
Wow.
something. No,
How do you-
94 years, I think. 93. Whatever, more than 90 years. No, because if you add the ages of 30, 33, 31, and 30, more 29, that more or less well, 93.
Okay.
That's how I have to introduce myself when it comes to uh, how long I've been married, and how long uh, how how long I've been a father or a parent. Um, and um, in that part, for the addressing the question, it was really a learning process. I had not been studying parenting in my earlier years as a father. I only really started maybe about 15 to 20 years ago. I'm not sure, but I started reading the book of Faber and Maslish, and that was how to talk so kids will listen, how to listen kids so kids will talk. So that was a critical point for me, and a friend actually told me it's a good book, read it, and that I think was a transition, was a key a point in my role as a father and as a parent. It really um, shook my foundations on how it is to be a father. And I realized I had to make a lot of changes if I want to make a significant impact on the lives of my children.
Right. So it was the listening part there, or the talking part that was really that you picked up from the book of Maslish.
Like, it was really listening. And then when I give talks, when I give seminars, it's really the value of listening first before you talk. And I'm also fortunate that I attended, my wife and I attended the marriage encounter in 1992. That was 28 years ago. And one of the things they talk about communication is not only listening, but also listening to feelings. And that's actually something I want to sort of pass through this talk tonight. Okay.
Mm.
One of the roles that fathers have is to be the strong, silent type, the uncommunicative, the unfeeling one. But I think always talk about the new normal. But what I would like to advocate as a new normal would be fathers who are really more sensitive and more sensitive to feelings in terms of listening to them and also expressing them. And I believe it will make a strong impact on our children when fathers really learn to be able to first feel and then express their feelings, because there's a mindset or an attitude that it's bad to be angry, it's wrong to be sad, it's shameful to be afraid for men. And that's something I really want to get out of the way, so that men, really, the fathers especially, learn to be able to accept that being human, we all have feelings, and we should learn to really validate and express them on ourselves and also on the part of our children.
Do you want to add anything to that, JR?
Well, yeah, I actually agree with Dan. No? I mean, going through parenting seminars with Maribel and also with the team, no, listening is a really big part, and listening with the heart, di ba? It's listening with the heart that's really important. When you're able to listen with your heart, then you're able to empathize with your children. And actually, what I'd like to say naman, it also starts with the parents. I mean, if you really are able to communicate well in that regard, no, you, your husband, and your wife, no, the children will see that, and the children will feel that. So as you grow older, they will see that there's nothing wrong with saying your feelings out loud, or as long as you created that space, diba? That's important, creating that space between you and your wife, you and your children, and that's where you can talk about a lot of things, values, about how you have to relate with people or with each other. And I think creating that space, and I it was a very good. I just attended a Christian parenting course, a first module over yesterday, with our community, and it was good how they framed it to be that the home should be a sanctuary. Sanctuary meaning a safe space for where your children, your wife, your children can grow, diba? And that, I think, is a good goal to have.
And that goal can be achieved really through the listening parents.
Yes.
Sanctuary there. All right.
Okay. So I guess just to follow up with what you guys shared, no, if many people will probably agree that their dads are not very good at dealing with emotions. No? So how does one get their father to open up?
Okay.
The young dad or the senior dad?
Dad, you want to go first?
Okay. Yeah. It's not per se not really the responsibility of children. Maybe the wives, the mothers, more in terms of having more of the responsibility or also the capability. But as in terms of children being able to engage their parents, their father especially, open conversations, especially talking about feelings. Just start a conversation, usually something that the father's interested in, a hobby, maybe sports, and eventually transitioning to feelings. How do you feel about this particular athlete, for example, or your collection of coins or stamps? So they get to talk about their feelings, and it's actually easier for children to learn to talk about feelings than their parents, because it's just more difficult because of the age factor, because of so many baggage already from their past. But it's possible, so children can do that. But when it comes to the couple, if they're married, it's for the wife. Huh?
What does it take for a father to learn how to be open? Ilang sessions yan? Pwede ba yan? Isang oras lang? Or madali ba yan? What are obstacles there?
Well, the first is, the hardest thing is actually the acknowledgement that they need help. That's the thing that gets them inside the door, or inside the Zoom meeting, so to speak.
Right.
They have to actually acknowledge that there's a need for me to learn how to express feelings, and also to acknowledge that I need help.
Right.
So in doing that, that's a great big step, but still a first step. So it's really a process of just identifying where am I coming from when I refuse to even acknowledge that I'm feeling anything. Because a lot of men are actually head people. They're just purely cognitive, processing everything, rationalizing everything, even their own feelings. So you find a lot of men, not exclusively for men, but a lot of men, when you ask them, how do you feel? Let me see. Let me think first, what do I feel? I'm thinking about what I'm feeling. It's not a real feeling that they're thinking about. Because feeling is already there. Okay? Don't need to think about it. So you have to really go back and see where it's coming from, and also do a little healing, I guess. But it's more of really acknowledging, okay, this is where I'm coming from, and if I want to be a more effective father, a more uh, wholesome person, okay, I can just learn to be more expressive of what's going on inside of me.
Yeah. Yeah, just to add to that, no, I think, no, maganda yung maganda yung framing ni Dan dun sa the situation, no, kasi we only the only way to learn to become a parent is your exposure to your own parents. So that's what you bring with you, di ba? And there's nothing, it's just that yun ang society, especially in our context, has framed men to be very strong. They can't be, they have to be the one who's always in charge. Ano nga di ba? The context of being the padre de familia or haligi ng tahanan, di ba? Haligi is, di ba? That's a support foundation. So even the term, there's a big expectation given by society that a father should be that. And when you think about foundation, ang unang iisipin ng mga lalaki is about fort, stronghold, di ba? Castle, di ba? Impenetrable walls. So that even exudes now to the way they treat people, their family, and even at work. I mean, their subordinates or whatever. That was how it was before, no? I'm just fortunate that siguro I came at a time that it's a transition of really trying to understand what it is to become a parent, and it was also hard for me. Don't get me wrong. It was also hard for me to break down how I would be very expressive about my feelings, because hindi ganon expected sa amin nun eh. Diba? I mean, it wasn't really expected. I'm just fortunate also that my parents entered the marriage encounter. So a lot of things changed when they joined. And I got, parang, I'm kind of grew into that role of, or that I grew into that kind of person na, yeah, I can talk to my parents. But it still took time. I can say siguro, I could have an open conversation. The only time I could really have an open conversation or started to have an open conversation with my own father was siguro, I was already close to working. That when I could already express how I really felt inside. And in fact, tama yung sinabi ni Dan, if you are having a hard time connecting with your father, try to do things that interest him. Diba? So, my dad and I, we play golf a lot. I even, and at one point pa nga, I worked for him. So, it was really like that kind of relationship, my dad and I. And, knowing that also, parang right now, I'm using that same foresight with my children. For example, but ako naman ngayon yung going down to them. So, like, for example, my son is into this game called Apex Legends. So, I really ask him from time to time, sino ba yung characters dyan? And then, there are times he would ask me, Dad, you want to play? No, but we'll play another game. But I really try to understand what they're into. With my daughter, it's the same thing. She's right now developing a skill for cooking or for baking. So I really encourage her to do so. And I ask her what she likes about it. We watch YouTube videos together as a family, looking at common things. So, it works both ways eh. As a child to your parent and as a parent to your child, di ba? So yeah, I guess that's one way to break down that perceived wall.
Okay, so there are many things about being a dad that are a mystery, and I think that most dads will probably feel unprepared. So we have a question here, and this guy says, what don't they tell you about being a dad that you should know? Because I'm expecting a son in 7 months and I'm really nervous.
Okay.
They prepare.
Sige. I'll start with that one. Okay. When I became a dad, it was, everything was parang actually surreal eh. Parang even when my wife was pregnant and I knew I was going to be a father with my son, parang it doesn't parang you try to prepare. I didn't even read any books about it. I was just like trying to recall lang that how my dad was with me, I guess, and how it would be. And then, but I was very, very, I ended up to become a very prayerful dad. I'm a very prayerful person today. But a lot of things, parang there's a certain, what do I say? Watch out for the first time your son or your daughter would come out. Because it is really, you think you'd be okay, you think you'd be super wow proud again. When for me time stopped when I first saw my son, and I said, wow, I'm a dad. And it was like, it felt like probably 30 minutes, but it was actually just mga parang 30 seconds lang. But everything was in slow-mo, and I was just looking at, wow, this came from me, diba? This is part of me. That was the first time. And then the second one, my daughter, when she came out, babae, ngayon, I'm like, okay, babae. The protective suddenly comes in, di ba? Parang, oh no, I'm a daughter. So, but I'd like to say I'm not that protective. I'm saying I think my daughter or even my wife would say I'm a really bit loving and concerned, but I'm not protective. Actually, pinapabayaan ko lang madapa yung daughter ko, di ba, magkapeklat and I don't care. But let her experience life. But it's more of the guidance. I think what people don't tell you is actually you really have to give guidance. You really have to give guidance, and you don't live your dreams or your life through them. I think that's something that people don't really tell you. Yeah. Or they do tell you, but it really doesn't sink in until some issues come up, and then okay, what did I do wrong? You start doubting yourself. No? So yeah, I guess that's one thing. You have to really just. There's no real way to prepare yourself, but one thing I can say is you have to remember that you are guiding a human being to live their best life, to give them every opportunity to become the best persons that they can be. And I think that's the role of a parent.
Well said, JR. Before I answer that, a shout out lang to Attorney Randall Tabayoyo, Happy Father's Day.
Yes.
Special greeting from your wife, Aiza.
Plugging, may plugging.
From us. Happy Father's Day to all fathers, especially to.
And also to Sweetie Alan, the father of this guy.
Oh, Alan.
When we're at it, Happy Father's Day, Dad. Happy Father's Day to my brother also, and to my brother-in-law.
Right.
Jingo, GM, and then on.
We'll ask Raf also.
TP and Ian.
What is the significant one that you appreciate about your dad, Alan? Raf. So that so this tatlong generations kayo eh. Because Papa and I learned the parenting skills when you were 2 years old. So looking at yourself and maybe your other friends, what is the difference there that is helpful in terms of how your connection with him, and maybe the way you see the connection of your friends to their fathers?
Well, I think Pop took a more active role in being my dad compared to some other dads who were always out. No, I mean, Papa's out, but we still had time to talk. And then
You're scheduled 8 p.m. with you.
Yeah. Tsaka Pop always made a point to answer our calls or reply, and then he'll answer soon. Kind of thing. So that's always he'll get back to you.
Yeah.
For sure.
So he was available and he was connecting with you.
Tsaka the logical side is very helpful, especially when dealing with very emotional challenges like what do you pick, what do you do. I think Dad is very good at sifting through the rationale behind decisions, and it's very good in training me how to think longer term.
So it's not just the mom to be around, but a dad is equally important in the rearing.
Very, very.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll answer the question.
Right.
What is it that they don't tell you about being a father? Actually, very simple, just two things.
Uh-oh.
First, you're about to embark on in the most difficult journey of your life.
Really.
The second thing, you're about to embark in the most meaningful journey of your life.
Ah,
Pambawi.
that's nice.
I like that. I like the second one.
They don't say that, but it's actually, just to clarify, it's easy to become a father. It was
Yes.
actually fun becoming a father. We enjoyed ourselves becoming a father. But to be a good father takes a lot of hard work, and we're still there. We're still work in progress, and we're learning every day. Even if my kids are already adults, they're professionals. I still learn a lot from them, and
Right.
I already have grandkids, and I see the effect of my early parenting on my own daughter, who's a mother now, and it tells me a lot of things, and that's why I really enjoy the company of my grandkids when I'm there in the States, and that's why it's really a very meaningful journey to become a parent.
Right. Yeah. I guess meaningful is really great. The question there is how can dads and also of course the moms make it a meaningful one so that like you Dan now it's really meaningful and worth the journey even if it was a difficult one. Diba? So maybe we just want to announce to the parents. That's why we have our online school for parents. We're ending the first batch and amazing learnings of the parents in 7 weeks. Spending time, being affirming. So we invite the parents out there to join our batch number 2, which will start on June 29th. Yeah. So they can just log in our Facebook Love Institute will have an announcement there, or the New Bold University, since it's a partnership with New Bold University. Yes.
Mm-mm. So, just a more technical question. What's the difference between fathering a boy and a girl?
Yeah, I saw that in the comments. Well, as JR said, you tend to be more protective with girls, but you also have to be fair. I mean, there's a natural tendency to be protective of girls, and boys, bahala ka sa buhay mo, no? Because boys can't get pregnant and all that. But it's actually, if you look at it, your parenting is coming from fear if you do that.
Mm.
But if it's coming from trust and confidence in your own child's capabilities, you will eventually learn to let go and let them discover life and make mistakes on their own. Hopefully, mistakes that will not damage them permanently, but they learn from it. And I think that's the key. The difference initially, you're going to be more protective of girls than boys, but hopefully you transition to a more balanced parenting that you treat them equally, if not equally fairly, so that they don't feel left out, or the other sibling is more special than them. So it's really about making that balance. How about you, JR?
Yeah, well, there is that tendency to be protective. Well, at first, I was really protective of my daughter, but then later on, when I noticed my daughter being very assertive, my daughter is very assertive. Eh. So, I just let her be, then let her discover about a lot of things. Na. Malakas loob nun eh. But I think I'll put the question in a different context. I'd say, I think you should look at addressing your children differently because they are different individuals, whether it be a boy or a girl. The thing that you have to find out is what do they like? What do they dream for? What do they aspire for? Then that's how you make the adjustments, regardless of gender. What has to be consistent though is the values that you want to share with them. Treatment may be different at certain times, but the treatment has to be aligned with the values that you are treating them, or teaching them rather. And like I always, kami ng wife ko, what we always try to teach them is really to do things out of love, and Kasi ang magiging benchmark ng mga anak mo, di ba, wouldn't you want that when your kids grow up and they eventually try to look for someone to spend the rest of their life with, meron silang magandang benchmark. And their benchmark would be usually their parents. So, kami ni Marian, we're very conscious about how we show our love for them. There's tough love, there's affectionate love, but the main thing is really everything should be contextualized. That everything we're doing for you, everything that we're teaching you, is out of how much we love you, di ba? And yun yung difficult Dan, kasi yun yung actually dun yung balancing act na sinasabi ni Dan. When do you do tough love? When do you do affectionate love? When do you do permissive love? When do you do, di ba? All of those kinds of love, it's the balancing act that we'll have to master in doing so.
Sige. I guess, just a follow-up question, like, are there specific rules that are different, or like specific preparations that are different for raising a boy and a girl, or I guess guidelines for parenting? Since I'm sure like I have a friend who as a daughter, talagang like the rules were so strict for her, but for her brother there were no rules, no? And where do you find that kind of balance where it's fair for both of them?
Well, that if I can address that, my sensing is that the effect on that is that we really feel unfair on the part of the girl. How come Kuya or the male sibling has a different set of rules, and it also almost comes to a point that, is it my fault that I'm a girl? Is it a mistake that I was a girl? So it sort of already blames the gender, and of course it wasn't their fault that they were born a girl, because the treatment is, again, as I said, if you're really fear-based in your parenting, you'll be very protective of all your children, especially girls. So in terms of, should there be a guideline, I think what JR said was very much to the point, that actually, regardless of gender, first acknowledge their uniqueness, not to really treat them equally, as in absolutely equally, but fairly, for them to feel that they are unique, that they're special, and that no one is favored just because of their gender or birth order or anything else for that matter. That's why it's a tricky balancing thing. And of course, a lot of us, myself included, had to learn the hard way. And we learn from our mistakes. And it's good that we have a lot of tools available today to help us in our parenting. So make use of all these tools. Go to the Love Institute for parenting tips. Attend the school for parents. So you get to become a better parent and also be a better person.
Okay, sige. So we're coming up on time, so I guess just wanted to ask if you have any parting words for dads watching, soon to be dads watching, or wives watching, and they have to tell something to their husband.
Well, okay. I'll go first, no? Siguro first, to the dads there or soon to be dads, I'd like to, I really like what Dan said about it's a meaningful journey. It will change you in so many ways. It will really let you look at life very differently. Very differently. If, having a wife is very different, iba pa to. So, yun yung ano lang. But, I think what you have to really remember is that you have to listen with the heart. For the dads there, listen with the heart. Learn to listen with the heart. If you don't know how, well, you can just go to the Love Institute and we'll teach you how. No, but seriously, no, you have to listen with the heart. Also, what you call this? You have to be honest. You have to be honest with your feelings, diba? And recognize that they're there. And maybe if you don't know how to express, maybe try to ask yourself, why can't you express? Why can't you, just try to really deep dive into yourself and try to find more about yourself. And that will eventually help you probably look into how you can be a better father. For the wives naman there, believe me, your husband needs all the encouragement he can get. He needs affirmation. He needs affection. Uh, Men have very different emotional needs, and so do women. So there are 5 basic emotional needs that are for men and for women. They're very different. There's a book on that. Look for that book, no. But one thing I can tell you is that your husband needs affirmation that he's doing okay and he's doing a great job. All right. Yep. If you're able to do that, for sure he will stick by you. Di ba, Maribel?
Yep. Good job.
Yeah. Dan?
Okay.
That's
with everybody's permission, I would like to share with you a letter that my dad gave me. It's actually a clipping from gave me almost 40 years ago during a retreat in college.
Yeah.
It's a letter. It's a short prayer actually by General Douglas MacArthur. It's called the Father's Prayer for His Son by General Douglas MacArthur, and it actually applies to all our children, daughters, and sons. But allow me to read. Build me a son, O Lord, who will be strong enough to know when he is weak and brave enough to face himself when he is afraid. One who will be proud and unbending in honest defeat, and humble and gentle in victory. Build me a son whose wishes will not take the place of deeds, a son who will know thee, and that to know himself is the foundation stone of knowledge. Lead him, I pray, not in the path of ease and comfort, but under the stress and spur of difficulties and challenge. Here let him learn to stand up in the storm. Here let him learn compassion for those who fail. Build me a son whose heart will be clear, whose goal will be high, a son who will master himself before he seeks to master other men, one who will reach into the future, yet never forget the past. And after all these things are his, add, I pray, enough of a sense of humor so that he may always be serious, yet never take himself too seriously. Give him humility so that he may always remember the simplicity of the true greatness, the open mind of true wisdom, and the weakness of true strength. Then I, his father, will dare to whisper, I have not lived in vain. I dedicate that to all fathers and also my dad who's in heaven.